Today, we're going to be talking about the influence of Helevorn's favorite music upon her writings. The band that initiated her into non-mainstream music and has been the most influential for her ever since is the Cradle of Filth. The Cradle of Filth is a British extreme metal band founded in 1991. Their sound is characterized by an amalgamation of black, gothic, and symphonic metal, and their lyrics and themes are heavily influenced by mythology and 19th century English literature. So, our first question for you today here is, when did you discover the Cradle of Filth and extreme metal in general, and how did it fit into your musical and literary preferences at the time?
Well, it was back in 2002, and at the time I was listening to rock music, but it was mostly the kind of music that my parents were into. So older rock and hard rock music, like Queen, AC/DC, and things like this. And I was also listening to alternative rock music like Linkin Park. So this was my musical background really at the time, and well, I was kind of a combination between a nerd and a rebel because I was reading a lot and spending a lot of time on my own, but at the same time I was feeling, you know, different from the kids around me. I was like 13 and a half at the time, I think. And because, we had other preferences. We were doing different things with our time, so this is why I felt a bit like I didn't fit in. And I was at this birthday party, and one of the kids said, like, this is, let me play you a really weird and crazy song that I found. And it turns out it was Tortured Soul Asylum by Cradle of Filth. And I remember distinctly how I felt when I heard it because it was very loud, in the speakers. And um, I think the reaction was supposed to be turn it off. I mean, this is what everybody else said. But I was really transfixed because I had never heard anything like that. It was so unlike any other music that I heard before. It was very atmospheric, and it was like I was transported into a different world. And I didn't understand very much of the lyrics at that moment, but I really really loved it. And I went home and I wanted to learn more about the band. This was, before Google and before YouTube, and we had a really bad and expensive internet connection. So in order to download a song, I had to leave the internet open the entire night, and it took like a few hours to download that one song. And for videos, I would leave it on for a few nighs because it took like 12 hours to download a video. And of course it was illegal and it was really expensive, and this is why I would leave it open at night, because it was cheaper at night. And so it was really difficult to get music and to get metal merchandise in 2002 Romania. So in order to get, something like a spiked collar, I would have to travel all across the country because there was this one city, this one store that had metal stuff, and I would just go there. So it was crazy. It only unleashed this kind of crazy behavior, and obsession. I was always quite an obsessive person. I was obsessed with things that I liked a lot, like books especially. So yeah, this is the kind of person I was at the time. And now I'm going to play that song that I heard from Cradle of Filth, and I'm going to share my screen. And this is it. Can you see it?
Yes, I can.
Yeah, so these are the lyrics as well. We're going to. This is the album cover. It has a very Lovecraftian feel, doesn't it?
Yes, it does, especially with the monster at the back.
O sweet Midian, I burn for thee at heart. Don't despair me, come bear me on wings rings of graveyard rubbed leather, to where pleasure rings deep secrets in spurts after dark.
Is the audio okay? Can you hear
Yes.
it loud? Okay,
Yes,
good.
it's quite good.
Okay, so this is one of the songs that I really loved, and as you can see, it was Midian is supposed to be a mythical city, and well, you can already get a sense of the style of Cradle of Filth's lyrics. Like I said before, Danny Filth is a lyrical genius, and he has this thing where he can combine, that elegance of romanticist poetry and quite pompous wording and vocabulary with well, a lot of sexual references. Yeah, this is it. You can see that here. It's the entrance to Midian and the vision that he has that enables him to actually transport himself into the city. And you see here how it is presented as a sort of an erotic ritual, right? So I've priced wide, slick rifts twixt obsidian thighs, hymeneal gates to darker sides. So this is something that Cradle of Filth does a lot. And well, he can do it really well. Right. So this was the song. As you can see, it was very impressive for me to hear that at that age and with my background, which did not know anything about extreme metal.
I see. Yes, it must have been quite a surprise.
Yes, very much. Very much. But I was the only one out of all the kids there that actually liked it and started listening to it.
What did they actually think, the other kids? Did they just mostly think it was strange and
Yeah, they thought it was strange and they thought it was satanic. And well, actually, after this, I started to be seen as a sort of a weirdo in the classroom because I started wearing black. I mean, I was already sort of wearing black because I was into other types of music, but it was mostly that kind of, black t-shirt and jeans and trainers. But now I was all black with spiked collars. Well, I didn't really wear them to school, but I wore chains on my trousers and boots and everything. And they started saying that I was a Satanist, and there were, legends spawned about me. Children were telling on me to the teachers, like, oh, I saw her with a gang dressed in black in the graveyard, and they were desecrating graves. I, I kid you not, this is actually what the kids were saying about me, that I was dancing with Satan and things like that. Actually, it was really cool. I loved it. And the thing is that this shock value that extreme metal has really fit me because I liked standing out in that way. Because the kids in my class pretty much annoyed me. So if I couldn't be friends with them, I could just scare them. So this is how I spent those years in my life. Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah. So you were very impressed by the song lyrically as well as musically.
Yes, yes, indeed, indeed. And the thing is that it made me, it really opened new horizons for me because, yes, I was reading, but I was reading things like, Charles Dickens and um, Jack London and Mark Twain and things like that at the time. And of course, Jules Verne. And then I was, oh no, actually, I think I just read Victor Hugo, the Les Miserables, and this was the kind of thing I was into. But here I found a lot of references to Gothic literature, and I had no idea what that was. And not only Gothic, also things like, Dante's Divine Comedy and early romanticists like Milton's Paradise Lost and Goethe's Faust, and I started reading all those things because there were references, in the lyrics, and I had to look them up. I had no idea what those things were. It says in this song, this place Midian is a long fabled Judaica, and I was, what is Judaica? And I was looking it up, and okay, it's something in the ninth circle of hell from Dante's Inferno. What is Dante's Inferno? So I would go to the local library and just borrow the book and read it. And then I would bring it to school with me. And all the kids would be like, look, she has a witchcraft book. Let's tell on her. So this is basically how it went. And this is how I got to read a lot of things and learn new words in English. Yes.
Yes, they do use a lot of literary references. And as we could see in the video, their lyrics are quite complex.
Yes, indeed, indeed. So there were so many things that I learned from them, really. And
hmm
it was also, I think, the first more complex literature that I read in English.
hmm So what did you think of the sound itself?
It was so dark. I loved it. I really loved it because it was very atmospheric, so you could really immerse and you could really, close your eyes and dream about what he's saying. Well, especially if you already know the lyrics, because you cannot discern very much out of the lyrics. But it's funny because I've often been asked by people who aren't into metal, doesn't this music make you angry? And I never understood this. This is so bizarre. Why would you get angry when you listen to something that you like? I mean, I often sleep listen to this music, and I always did because it's like listening to an audiobook because I know all the lyrics by heart, even now after like almost 20 years. And it's like a story,
hmm So it is hard to decipher some of the lyrics sometimes. So when you listen to one of their songs for the first time, do you automatically look up the lyrics?
Yes, yes, definitely. Yeah, they also have parts where they don't have growls, so it's, well, not clean vocals, but like incantations, or reciting, like this beginning of the song was.
hmm So how did Cradle of Filth change your perspective on music and literature and your worldview in general?
Yeah, this is how I started to delve more into this kind of music, and I discovered other extreme metal bands, and I discovered all this literature.
hmm And transgression and shock value play a great part in extreme metal. How does Cradle of Filth fit into that?
Indeed, like I said, extreme metal is a music of concept and atmosphere, and it is meant to be transgressive, and it is meant to be to challenge societal norms and be an affront to normative social values, as it has been said. And this is why they have this aggressive sound that is meant to say that this music is not for everyone. So you have to be very committed and very willing to transport yourself into another world and just get out of the world that you are familiar with. And also the bold themes. There is a lot of the dark side of human nature in Cradle of Filth, and also the dark side of fiction, sort of horror fiction, all these gothic influences. And it's actually not satanic at all. So people who listen to it will tell that the actual references to Satan in Cradle of Filth are very few. And it is just as satanic as, Milton, Goethe, or Dante are. So not more than that. It's basically it's a theme, that they have this theme of religion and these retellings of the Bible with emphasis, for example, on Lilith instead of Adam and Eve. And they have an entire album called Damnation and the Day, which is a retelling of the book of Genesis with Lilith at the center of it. So also a lot of references to paganism and the worship of ancient goddesses. Also, Cradle of Filth got me into liking mythology because of course I read, Greek myths because everybody has, but I didn't really know a lot about mythology in general and history of religions. But in Cradle of Filth, you have so many references, and I didn't know who those people are. You'd have names like Ereshkigal, Astarte, Hecate, and I started looking them up, and I discovered so many wonderful things. And I think it definitely influenced me in my professional life, so to speak, because then in university I started to study a lot of history of religions, and all the academic papers that I ever wrote were on history of religions and medieval literature and religion. So I have to thank Danny Field for this.
Yes, indeed. And as you said in the Instagram live preview, a lot of their lyrics are basically like a novella.
Yes, exactly. Which is like this album "Cruelty and the Beast" that we have there behind you, because this is an entire album about Elizabeth Bathory, the 16th century Hungarian countess who the legend says about her that she was bathing in the blood of virgins so as to keep herself young and beautiful. So she was into witchcraft, and she inspired, it is said, vampire stories, including Bram Stoker's Dracula. So they have an entire album about her life, starting from her childhood and her the beginnings of her interest in witchcraft and her love life. They present her as very much in love with the Black Count, her future husband, but at the same time she has repressed bisexual tendencies, and this combined with her unstable mental this situation, this leads to her starting to murder women basically out of frustration. This is how it is presented in Cradle of Filth. So because she wants to have them by her side, and she wants to be them because she chooses young and beautiful women, especially when she becomes older. So and eventually she descends into madness, and the album ends with a wonderful monologue spoken by a British actress. So yeah, so they also have female vocals and soprano.
I see. So it's like a blend of genres. Not only is it, music, it's also a little bit theatrical and cinematic.
Yes, you're right. This is very well put. Indeed, it is very, very theatrical. And Danny Filth himself is this flamboyant person, and he's a character in himself. And their aesthetic used to be very, gothic in the beginning. They would have velvet and lace and all that. And Well, now it's more leather and spikes, but back in the 90s, this is how they looked. And I really loved it. They actually started as black metal, and then they went to more complex and less dissonant sounds. And that's when they added the, the symphonic parts. And I think that they were they were very much criticized for this, because black metal was supposed to be the original black metal in the 90s, like the Norwegian black metal. It was supposed to be very elitistic in that it was dissonant, and it was recorded on purpose with really shitty equipment, so it would be really difficult to listen to it, and the lyrics were kind of abstract, and those bands that were satanic were really just, invoking Satan. Hail, Master of Beasts. This is actually a song. So actually, that was really ridiculous. But then Cradle of Filth really made art out of this. So a lot of people were really pissed off with them. Like, why are you dragging this into mainstream? What is with the, the sopranos and the orchestra and the choir? What's up with that? You're not supposed to do that.
Because they thought that, heavy metal or folk metal was mostly like a niche thing, right? And they don't want just anyone to be into it.
Yeah, exactly. But then Cradle of Filth, and they just wanted something different. So they made something different, and they made a, they are quite irreplicable, so to speak.
I thought it was interesting that you said that the idea of metal was that, and other forms of extreme music, is that it takes dedication to get into it. That's kind of like some genres of literature, I would say. Sometimes some types of literature are not everyone's cup of tea because it takes a lot of effort to read, such as, for example, James Joyce's Ulysses, which is something that I guess a lot of people wouldn't be interested in because it's stream of consciousness and it's extremely mundane. It's just the life of an ordinary man going about in his day, right? So there's not really a plot, and it's kind of disjointed, and it's not a traditional narrative. So maybe in a way, extreme music is a bit like that. It kind of challenges the norms of what a story, or, in this case, music, should be.
That's very true, and that's actually a great comparison. You know how Ulysses has those chapters that are written in an amalgamation of styles, so as to replicate different kinds of literature. It's actually a lot like what we were talking about, Cradle of Filth.
Do you think it also changed how you saw literature in the same vein? Did you also try to, because after you saw, music as a way of, extreme music as a way of challenging the idea of what music should be, did you also think of finding literature, for example, like Ulysses or books like that, that was different from mainstream literature to read?
Yeah, I think I did. And I think that the style in which Danny Field writes has some similarities with my own, or at least we have the same or similar sources of inspiration, I would say. So
Mm-hmm.
19th century literature, English literature especially, has meant a great deal to me, and everything. I mean, from romanticism to Victorian realism. So I do love those things.
Mm-hmm. Does he ever write about medieval?
Um, well, sort of. For example, he has a whole album about Joan of Arc and Gilles de Rais. So, well, that counts. And also, there's one song from the point of view of King Arthur, and
Hmm.
it's really wonderful. Um, yeah. So, yes, it does. And when they refer to the Middle Ages, it is mostly about um, continued pagan worship into Christian times, for instance, like the one with King Arthur. So something that paganism that has started to be seen as satanic during medieval Christianity. And also with Joan of Arc, it was sort of similar because she was burnt as a heretic. And in Cradle of Filth's lyrics, one of the recurring themes is that of the witch who is punished by people who do not understand her. So she's either burned at stake and persecuted by the Inquisition, or persecuted by the people in her town or village. So this is the female character, and the male character is usually the grieving lover who wants to avenge her. So this is something that occurs in several songs of theirs. And yeah, this is also set in medieval times.
I see. So, what are the prevalent themes and subjects in the Cradle of Filth?
Well, I think that the some of the themes that are very prevalent is so one of them is this obsessive love that appears from with the model of Gothic literature, and also mythology, including Christian mythology. So. Different veins of religion, and these two main directions, mythology and Gothic fiction, are linked through themes like death and spirituality, love, solitude, and knowledge. Um, so this is why we have protagonists, like I said, like Dracula and Faustus and King Arthur and Elizabeth Bathory. And there are several typologies that we can see here. So the speaker is generally a philosopher or a libertine poet, like Lord Byron. The female characters are generally either pagan goddesses or witches when they are human, or someone like Joan of Arc, who is, you know, a heroine who is considered sort of a witch because she is misunderstood.
True. Even though she is a Christian saint, during her lifetime, she was accused of witchcraft as well.
Exactly, exactly. So basically people who stand outside of societal norms, right? All these typologies of characters that I mentioned, this is how they would be summed up, right?
hmm So, what are the themes of Cradle of Filth that influenced you the most in your own works?
Yeah, the female characters, the type of female characters that Cradle of Filth has, which of course are inspired from Gothic fiction, but they found their way into my work very much. And this theme of obsessive love that I mentioned before, also inspired from Gothic fiction, and the romantic couple dynamic based on this obsessive love and on suffering. And this is terrible because this is why I'm such a sadistic writer, and most of my characters, and especially my couples, suffer so much. So, learning romance from Gothic fiction and extreme metal, it really explains a lot of the things in my writings. And also, I think this is one reason why I don't shy away from controversial themes. For example, certain aspects of violence, like murder, because I'm placing it in the Middle Ages, and mental disorders and rape. Rape features a lot in Cradle of Filth's lyrics, because for example, these women who are persecuted, this is one thing that happens to them, and it's told in a touching way, and this is one reason why the lover takes revenge, wants
hmm
to avenge her. And also, characters who are persecuted and who stand outside of society. So this is one other thing that I have a lot, and perhaps this is also why I have so many witches and fallen priests, if I could say that. So priests who do something that is very controversial for their faith, even though they cling on to their faith, but they do something that others wouldn't approve.
Like Elisar and I guess Aiden, even though he's no longer a priest or monk.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly, yes.
How about Eyolf? Is he inspired by Cradle of Filth?
I think Elf is not dark enough, but yeah, I think he is because he is a witch and he's yeah, the dark parts. Yeah, I think the dark parts are definitely inspired by that because there is quite a bit of that violence that I was describing a few moments earlier.
And in a future short story, the one with Ingvar's parents, Vili and Valdis, we will see that dynamic of the dominating woman who is a witch once more, right? So she is like a more extreme version of Reinvig. And as you said during the Instagram live, she is inspired by Elizabeth Bathory.
Oh yes, very much, very much. Valdis was inspired by that. I always wanted to make that kind of character. Of course, Elizabeth Bathory is presented by Cradle of Filth as a anti-hero and a a negative character because she's a serial killer, right? And they do acknowledge it. So uh, they do not make a cult of Elizabeth Bathory or something. It is really written with a degree of objectivity, as you would find it in a novel about her, for example. So it's not, odes to Elizabeth Bathory, like the ones to Satan, oh, Master of Beasts or something. It's so yes, this is sort of how I present Valdis as well. Not as extreme, it's more subtle than Elizabeth Bathory, but yes, I did inspire her from that because, like I said, the woman in Cradle of Filth's lyrics always dominates the male. So sometimes their love is pure, but and they suffer from external forces who want to break them apart, like I mentioned. But other times she's a manipulative woman with mystical powers who wants him to do her bidding. So maybe she is a pagan goddess incarnated, and she wants an adept, she wants sort of a knight to do to get her power for her, so her chosen one. So I think this is in a way how Vili and Valdis and their dynamic works, because she loves him, but she also wants to get things done, and she uses him more or less willingly in order to do that. And he is so in love with her that people gossip that he was bewitched, because they do not really see the allure in Valdis. Maybe because she's genuinely in love with him and she is different when she's around him and much more likable than she is with other people. And yes, this is also in Cradle of Filth's album about Elizabeth Bathory, with people gossiping that she bewitched her husband.
How about Valdis's erratic personality? Do you think that was inspired by Elizabeth Bathory or not?
It might have been. Yeah, I think it was, I guess. I mean, um I think it was my way to represent magical powers, because often in the history of religions, a lot of these mystics, whether they were Christian or pagan, their the manifestations of of their visions often sound like signs of a mental illness, right? So this was sort of my take on representing magic in a realistic way, because there is no and Valdez will be the most fantasy one, we can say, because all sorts of things will happen that are apparently brought about by Valdez. Then I also wanted to give, to for the reader to always think, okay, but maybe it's just her mental illness. Maybe it's not really something supernatural going on, and the rest is coincidence.
That makes sense because I think Aiden also has the same thing because he has epilepsy.
Yes, true, true. Yeah, yeah. So this is one way to represent visions. I think that I did this repeatedly in my writings, coming up with several realistic explanations about how people could get in touch with supernatural forces. So we have the drugs, as I showed in the case of Ingvar and also in the case of Valdez. There are several neurological problems, or some mental illness, I can say. So I think I explore this a bit, and also sleep and dreaming as another way to contact the supernatural forces.
I see. Yeah, so there's lots of things to explore in the future for this type of podcast. We're going to be talking more about some songs in depth and how they connect to more of your characters.
Exactly, exactly. And now I said that I would share with you several quotes that I have here. So from Cradle of Filth. Oh, just a moment. I think I did something stupid. Okay, so in the meantime, while I get my quote back, which I didn't save, um, do you think we should discuss other types of music as well? So other types of bands in the future?
I think so, definitely.
Yeah, because I was thinking that I would also like to talk about things um, that influenced me more in terms of the setting and not the style and the themes, which is Viking metal and folk metal. So I guess this is one of the future podcasts that we're going to have, isn't it?
Definitely. Yes. And we previously did mention, in the art podcast, I think it was the art one where no, the one about trolls, because we talked about the slave and the trolls, and you said you were influenced by some of the artwork of some of the Viking bands.
Oh yeah, yeah, that's true. Yes, indeed, indeed. So yes, in the Slave and the Trolls podcast, we also started to discuss a bit about folk Viking metal. We can say that Fintroll is, and I'm going to delve a bit more into that.
hmm And for Tete and myself, I know that in the future we will also be going over some of the musical influence she has for Gerda and Kai's story.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, that's nice. That's
It
nice.
is, yeah. So since this is our first music podcast, we will use this structure that we used here to maybe apply to our future podcasts.
Okay, yeah, right, right. Okay, yes, finally, sorry about this. Um, okay, so this is a quote from a song called Lilith Immaculate. Again, we see that Lilith is one of the typologies. She represents the goddess. And her influence on her chosen one. It says, "This delectable reaper, her eyes were profound, drawing him in deeper until he was drowned, hurled on the shore of the world underground. Tortuous one, taboos undone, a glittering star on a sea of myriad waves, and a thickening mist, a seductress leading lovesick hearts astray. This English rose with traits of those who graced the harems of the East. Adorned with thorns, she raised the horns and scarlet hems to wasted priests. tortuous one, debauchery one, the attention of emperors, princes, and tsars. For the toll of her kiss, no soul could dismiss the advance of her throne from afar. And this speaks to the influence that Lilith, as a representative of the ancient goddess, who has been marginalized by mainstream religion, by Christianity, has actually influenced. And with her promise of power, she has had a lot of important men do her bidding, right? These emperors and princes and tsars, because they had their power by helping her, and in return she was giving them what they were seeking, influence, right? So also like, she raised her scarlet hems, right, of her dress to wasted priest. And this is another thing in Cradle of Filth, the priest who is seduced by someone he shouldn't be seduced, or he shouldn't be seduced by anyone. But then we are going to listen next time to a song with a priest obsessed with a woman who acts as a sort of a demoness. So this is what she says, Lilith. Fall for the love of me, crawl for the love of me, drool for the love of my virulent sway. I grow more master the faster the days. So, like I said, the women in Cradle of Filth are really the dominatrix type, and this is definitely something that a dominatrix would say. And about this master, when they remastered the album Cruelty and the Beast, they celebrated, I think, 20 years, yeah, from 1998 when they made it, and they released this remastered version in 2018. And instead of remastered, it is written remistress. I thought it was okay. To Eve, the art of witchcraft. The male speaker says, "Make me as a flower that grows forever in your throne, that I might pollinate the world with darkness as your own. Embrace me with spell-binding eyes, the fire of life that never dies." So this is what he wants to be her servant, right? And she's the goddess, and she is an Eve who dabbles in witchcraft. And this is the reward that she will offer him. She will greet me as serpent in her dark secret Eden, and I will always want for her. Witchcraft is desire. My soul is poisoned from within. So again, this obsessive love and the way she holds sway on him is described as a poison, right? Very, very Gothic literature, because love is always poisonous in Gothic literature. And she says that there is a beautiful monologue in a female voice. And she says, "I will make my puppets dance. The men will bow down before me to take my flesh as lucid thoughts of dark, unbridled lust." So this is what she wants, the goddess who returns. From Nymphetamine, another instance of a man suffering because of the woman he loves. He says, "Cold was my soul, untold was the pain I faced when you left me a rose in the rain. So I swore to the razor that never enchained would your dark nails of faith be pushed through my veins again." So the love that is assimilated with a kind of a suicide, right? Racked with your charm, I'm circled like prey, back in the forest where whispers persuade, more sugar trails, more white lady laid than pillars of salt. So again, the woman who has the man follow her like, trails in a forest, right? 6 feet deep is the incision in my heart, that barless prison. Sick and weak from my condition, this lust, this vampiric addiction to her alone in full submission. Because, like I said, women men are in submission to the women. And another one from Black Goddess Rises. Again, the goddess who has found a male worshipper. He says, "Thee I invoke, boneless one, all woman, pure predator, thee I worship. Thou art darkest, Gabrielle, Lilith, who wrote this deed, thou art pale Hecate, rising from Thessaly. And he also calls her at one point a sweet, sinful Eve. So Gabrielle is the female version of the male-ish Archangel Gabriel, right? And then Hecate, the goddess of witchcraft, or connected with witchcraft. He says, "You are in my dreams, the darkness in my eyes, the rapture in my screams. Black goddess, arise. Seductive evil, drink thy fill of the bleeding Christ in thy arms." And this is a sort of a Pietà-like imagery, right? But she is, instead of a Mary, she is vampiric. And just to show how difficult it is to please this kind of woman, he says, "Am I to bleed myself dry just to see your delight?" And this is the kind of dilemmas that Aiden has with Ranveig, so he often feels like, look, I'm suffering so much, what do you want me to do just to give your love to me? Yes, thank you.
Yes, that was fascinating. It really shows just how in-depth those lyrics are. They're very well written and they really feel like poetry or a novel, as you said.
Yes, that's true. That's true. Danny Filth is my role model when it comes to writing.
Yeah. So is there anything else you'd like to share before we move on to our next podcast in the future about these songs in particular?
For now, no, we're going to discuss more about all of these in the future podcast, which I'm really looking forward to because I love sharing with you the lyrics and interpreting them.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.